What is up, Packer fans? Week 14, the bye week. The Packers are 5-8, and it doesn't look good to get in the playoffs. I was kind of talking about why they're in this position before, but now let's kind of go over what the playoff picture looks like for the Packers right now. They are definitely on the outside looking in, about the 11th seed, and we all know the top 7 seeds go into the playoffs. The 4 division winners, which is going to be kind of weird because the NFC South, Tampa is only 6-6. They're the 4th seed, but they're division winners, so they're ahead of teams like the Cowboys, who are 9-3, and the Giants at 7-4, and the Seahawks at 7-5. So right now, the playoff picture has the Eagles number 1 seed, the Vikings number 2 seed, Niners as the number 3 seed, the Buccaneers as the number 4 seed, Cowboys at 5, Giants at 6, and the Seahawks at 7. With the Commanders right there at 8, Packers lost to them, so the Commanders have the tiebreaker. They do have 4 more games to go, just like the Packers. They have a bye week this week as well. So that's really going to be what comes down to the wire for the Packers. The Giants have 5 more games. So for them, there's more room for some losses there. Packers might be able to catch them, but the Giants have the tiebreaker there as well. That's another thing that kind of messes with this whole situation. Packers at 11, they've got the Falcons and the Lions ahead of them at 5-7 and 5-8. So, the Falcons same record as the Packers, so I don't know what the tiebreaker with those two would be right now. But I still have them Falcons ahead of the Packers just for this. Behind the Packers, though, you have the Panthers at 4-8, Cardinals at 4-8, Saints at 4-9, Rams at 3-9, and the Bears at 3-10. Really, mathematically, I think the only team that's really eliminated is the Bears at 3-10. The Rams kind of at 3-9. I think they're basically done too. I still think, though, maybe if they were able to win the next 5 games and other teams lost, they could still get in, kind of like a Packers situation. But with Stafford being out, they just got Baker Mayfield, so Baker. So we will see about that. Hopefully that's a win for the Packers, though. One of those 4 games they have remaining. But really, at the top of the division, the Vikings, we're not going to catch them. That's over with. Eagles, we're not going to catch them. They have the tiebreaker anyway. The Niners at 8-4. They're struggling to really kind of get ahead of the Seahawks there. Seahawks are right behind them at 7-5. They play tough. They're kind of a surprise team. So we'll see what the Hawks can do. Hopefully they can lose some of these games. They have 5 more games as well. So that's all going to really come into play. This bye week is huge for the Packers. If some of those teams that are ahead of them, like the Giants, the Seahawks, the Commanders have a bye week, but I think the Falcons have a bye week too, if I remember correctly. So kind of a bummer that some of the teams the Packers need to lose have bye weeks, but I guess it'll make the next 4 weeks after this Sunday a lot more interesting. So we will see what it comes down to then. But with the NFC East being so stacked, right now you basically have all the teams in the NFC East. That tie game for the Commanders is the reason why the Seahawks are ahead of them. If the Commanders would have won that game, they would have been ahead of the Seahawks. But with that tie, it kind of makes it weird for the standings. So Packers, if they can win these games, the Commanders lose these games, they could just get ahead of them because of that one tie game. So that could be huge. The Giants also have a tie. So it's really going to be a battle of that NFC East. Hopefully they can beat up on each other a little bit more. I know the Eagles play the Giants this week. That'd be huge for the Packers if the Eagles could get that game against the Giants. The Cowboys have the Texans. We're not really chasing the Cowboys, even though that's the one team in the NFC East that we have the tiebreaker with. If they lost the next 5 games, even though they play the Texans this week, if they lost all their games, then we might be in a spot to tie them, obviously, and then we have the tiebreaker because we beat them heads up. So really, though, in our own division, we're third. So we're behind the Lions and obviously the Vikings, but with the Lions being ahead of us at 5-7, they have 5 more games. So hopefully one of those games is against the Packers, so the Packers have to win that one. If they lose that one, it doesn't matter anyway. So they have to win that one. That's that's the final week of the season, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's week 18. So that is going to be a huge game. I think we'll know a lot more about where the Packers sit when we get to that week. Hopefully, a lot of these other teams lose, and the Packers are right in the mix in a win they're in situation. That would be huge at Lambeau. Last 3 of the last 4 games are home games for the Packers. Something else to take into account here. That is huge. And especially with some of these younger teams like the Seahawks and, the Commanders, like I was saying, the Falcons with Mariota and just, some of their injuries. But Packers have been here before, so hopefully they can string some games together, and some of these other teams will lose these games, and the Packers will be in the mix. But it really, obviously, is not ideal. The games, the games against the Jets and the Commanders and the Giants, all games Packers should have won. If you have those three games right there, now you're 8-5 instead of 5-8, and you're really in a good spot. You'd be right there. You'd basically be behind the Vikings for the division still, but you'd be basically the 5th or 6th seed. But with those losses, now they're going to have to fight and claw to get back in it. So, with the Bears and the Rams basically being out of it, the Saints at 4-9, the Cardinals at 4-8, the Panthers at 4-8, and the Packers at 5-8 are all still technically mathematically in the playoff race. If one of them can go on a streak, it will make things interesting, because obviously if teams are winning, other teams are losing, and it's got to balance out. And so we will see how it all works out for the Packers. But for them, it's simple. You have to win the next 4 games. If they don't, it's done. All the mathematics and all the possibilities and all the equations you can do are out the window, and it is time for the offseason. But right now, they're still in it. Like I said, they're right there with the Falcons, who were, in the mix. And now, because that NFC East has kind of separated itself so much, that really makes it hard, especially if, like, when the Cowboys and the Giants and the Commanders all play the Eagles now. If the Eagles are like, oh, we're the number 1 seed, we can afford to lose a game, because they have the heads up with the Vikings, so they can't afford to lose a game. Maybe, they do lose one of these games against one of the division rivals. They already lost to the Commanders once, so that'll be interesting. Hopefully the Eagles want to get revenge on them, and they can all beat up on each other, like I was saying. But then it comes down to that NFC South is very interesting, because they're all, the Buccaneers are 6-6, Falcons are 5-8, Panthers are 4-8, and the Saints are 4-9. Everybody in that division is eligible to win that division still, even with the Saints being at 4-9. They're only, I guess it's 2.5 games behind the Buccaneers at 6-6, but it's still, it's gonna even out with the bye weeks. After next week is the final week of the byes. And then it'll get really interesting in that NFC South. You could have a team with a losing record that makes the playoffs. We've seen that before, but this could be a really interesting one. They could be 7-10. It'll probably be more like 8-9, just because I feel like the Buccaneers, they'll probably win at least 2 of the next 3 games or 5 games at least. But we'll see what the rest of the division does for the NFC South, because the Packers, they need to get in the mix. They need to start kind of shaking it up and just winning these games. So the bye week, like I said, will really kind of open our eyes to the situation that the Packers are in, what they can do, and where they can go moving forward. If they need to kind of shut Rodgers down and kind of see what Love can do if they do lose to the Rams. I think, they'll beat the Rams, because that's at Lambeau. No Matthew Stafford. The Rams are beat up, and so I think they'll get that win. That'll be huge coming out of the bye. And then you're 6-8, depending on how other teams do. Going down to Miami on Christmas Eve is going to be the game of the year for the Packers. That's going to be obviously the division games at the end, but you're at home. It's a little more comfortable. This is the game in Florida on Christmas Eve. Rodgers kind of sucks in Florida, notoriously, but, he actually says his numbers down there aren't that bad. They just don't always win. But we haven't played the Dolphins in a while, so Tua and Waddle and Tyreek, it's going to be tough. So that's the game that I'm most concerned about for the Packers in the next little 4-game stretch that they have. But it really comes down to just kind of staying with, hopefully the Seahawks, the Giants, Commanders can lose. The Falcons can lose, and the Lions, I think the Lions will lose. They'll probably be competitive, but I don't think they're going to be the team that keeps us out of the playoffs. Hopefully, obviously now we jinxed that, so let's knock on some wood. So definitely a more clear playoff picture now at this point with with some of the teams, but there's so much back and forth. It's really kind of crazy what these teams are doing and what is being expected of, some of these young guys coming in. Now you got Brock Purdy as the 49ers quarterback and, like I said, Geno Smith with the Seahawks. But it's going to be interesting. Can the Niners keep this run going even with Purdy in? Because I heard that Jimmy G might be coming back from injury in the playoffs. He doesn't need surgery, so that'll be interesting to see. And then some of these other teams, like I said, they're young, and can they keep it going? Hopefully the veteran presence of the Packers can go on a streak here and they can really stack some wins together. It's going to be close. It's going to be nuts to watch, and hopefully the Packers can get it. Going into the season, obviously we were so optimistic, and now we're on the outside looking in, the 11th seed in the playoffs. Going from the 1 seed to the 1 seed to basically the 1 seed again. Now you're like, okay, well, now we're not even in the playoffs. So it's crazy how fast the season can turn. It's crazy how fast things can switch around in an organization. And when you think you have the team and then you come out and just don't execute, and just a little fine details are off, the whole season can blow up in your face. So at 5-8, there's still hope for the Packers. Definitely need some help, but hopefully they can do it. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Go Pack, go.